Hello, welcome to video number 5 of Unit 1, Beginning App and Game Development at UWGB. We're going to be going over in this video basically computers, C#, XNA, and U. That's going to include the benefits of using XNA, also what makes a great programmer, how you can use Microsoft Visual Studio, bend it to your will, and also how to set up the game development environment. Again, we're going to just show kind of a brief glimpse into that, and I'm actually going to run actual XNA game to give you a preview of how far we're going to get in week 4. So what a program is basically just a list of instructions that tell a computer what to do. We've actually already done this in our Hello World app, and the problem we were trying to solve was how do we display Hello World to the user? And that was the problem. That's number 1 here on writing a program. We have to do 2 things. We figure out how to solve the problem. We know that we have to create a sprite batch, for example, now, and we know that we have to put that in the draw function and update it, and that's it. I kind of showed you the solution there. So we need to do a couple things to solve, or to be able to program. We have to solve problems. We also have to explain our solution to something very stupid. That is the computer. The computer is extremely stupid. It just does whatever we tell it to, basically. And in this case, we just got to give it directions in the form of C# and tell it what we want. There's a step 0 as well, which is basically to find out what the customer wants. Sometimes this is the most important step, especially in real-world applications. So for games, for example, you need to actually design them. You need to come up with what the next best game is going to be. As you could tell from Batman Arkham Origins, we had a number of surprise plot twists and things like that. We had to decide on those plot twists and what the actual battles would be and what the flow of the game would feel like. And that was a matter of finding out what the customer wanted. So that's just as important to do in games as it is in business applications. We'll cover that later once we get to business applications. Great programmers are knowledgeable. They know a lot about programming. They're also creative. They can find great new ways to do things. You have to be able to work good with other programmers, which is one of the reasons we'll be putting you guys on teams so that you get a chance to work together. Also, try to be as consistent or persistent as you can. Keep working at a problem until it's solved. These are some good traits. I've seen these traits in various people I've worked with over the years professionally, and I can tell you that definitely these are the 4 big ones, and don't take this too lightly. Definitely look at these, think about if these are things you can do, and hopefully there's ways that you can enhance each one of these traits in yourself and become a great programmer. Here's how we're going to learn. We're going to find out how to write C# programs, and we're going to do this via creating games. We're going to spend a couple weeks on basics of C#, just outputting basic C# for loops and things like that. And then we're going to go back into the game arena and learn about how games themselves are made to work inside of XNA framework. We're going to use game examples such as the shooter that I am going to show you in a little bit. And we're going to have various presentations, demos, practical sessions, labs, hand-on activities, along with projects and the occasional quiz. So that's sort of how we're going to learn in this class, is by basically doing a lot of different game examples, going over presentations, watching demos, and having practical sessions. These are the 3 things you're going to be learning in this course as far as skills. You're going to learn C#, and that's how you tell the computer what to do. You're going to learn XNA, and that's basically just a set of resources to help you make games. And you're going to learn Visual Studio. Each of these you can take with you in other areas. For example, XNA is good for any type of game you're making, but Visual Studio is good for not only games but also business applications. C# is a powerful internet language that's used for a variety of purposes, such as interfacing with databases and just generally making life easier as a managed language. All of these go into creating the game. The C# programming language is how we will be telling the computer what to do, step-by-step instructions, and there's a compiler in between that compiles the C# code into the instructions that are executed by the game. as I mentioned in the last video, and I demonstrated, XNA runs a game loop that runs every frame, and that's constantly updating and constantly drawing and doing its logic calculations and running with it. So that's, if you think about a game as an interactive experience that's always running, basically it's a time-based experience from the moment you start and you spawn in a game, and as you walk forward, time is elapsing. And the fact that that time is elapsing allows enemies to advance on you, or allows you to start running for cover, for example, if you're playing like a first-person shooter or something like that. That is all due essentially to the start of the game loop, which basically spawns off a number of other methods that are responsible for timing all of those events out. So the game loop is very important. XNA provides these key resources, such as the game loop, to game developers so that they can program that kind of thing in. Visual Studio is what is called an Integrated Development Environment, an IDE. Here you will be writing programs and debugging programs. Think of it like Word except for C#, or Excel except for C#. It's basically the thing you use to interface with C# as a human being, the thing that you use to write C# code. And as a summary, here's what you need to get started. We already covered this. This is the Visual Studio 2010 XNA 4.0. Just a note here, most modern Windows PCs will support this, including Windows XP, Vista 7. There also is limited support for 8, but we recommend that you avoid this unless you really cannot, just because it's a little more painful to set up. The good thing is you don't even need a massively powerful computer to learn to program with XNA. We're not going to be using the 3D components of it. We're just going to be using 2D, which means that there's very low overhead for XNA, and you can even use something like a netbook to program this on. There is a XNA Creators Club that you could join if you want to. Premier members of XNA can actually sell their games. So this is something where you could take your games from class that you start, finish them, maybe you could even sell them. Creators.xna.com is where you will want to go to check that out. I should also mention that the XNA Creators Club is a good way to get into the industry. It's, as former Frozen Codebase CEO and founder of Frozen Codebase, we were what's called Xbox Live Arcade developers. And that really spawned out of the XNA scene, and it gave us credibility. The XNA, early XNA work we did gave us credibility into the Xbox Live Arcade scene and allowed us to make the connections we needed. So it gives you some visibility as a game developer. It's a great thing to add to your resume. Another thing you can do is if you have an Xbox 360, you can actually send your games. You could even send the game that we just made, the Hello World game, to the 360. We're not going to be really covering this much, but it is something you can do. I'll probably provide some simple steps to do this, and also you could go on Google and find some steps, but basically you bind the PC and Xbox together so that they can communicate and talk to each other, and you send over the executables over to the 360, and then it can run the game. This is an example of what XML Game Studio Device Center looks like. This is a good thing from the aspect of it gives you good industry experience. This is the same kind of device center I would have looked at when I was working at Radical or Raven or one of those other studios, because basically I would see all the Xboxes that we were working with, and I would be able to just send the game, like for example the Batman game, to a various Xbox or whatever I was working on. In that case, that was a cross-platform game, so I could also send to like the PS3, for example, even the Wii U. So in that case, we had a number of tools from each provider. We had a Sony tool, we had a Nintendo tool, and we had a Microsoft tool. In this case, this is the Microsoft tool for connecting to the 360. Games have a lot of content. I showed where the content section was. Remember this? This was our content section, and this lists all the content. In this case, we've just got a sprite font. That's the sprite font we added from last time. We have created now an empty project, and we've built up that game and actually gotten some code to work. Think of this as like you're the sculptor. This is the block of clay. This is what you are using to create things. If you haven't stepped through the first couple videos, I think video 2 and 3 really get into how to make this empty project. If you've watched this one first, that's fine. Just go back and learn how to create that empty project. You also learned how to run the game project and how to compile. Just as a side note, we can also run the game freestanding without Visual Studio as an exe, which is how we're going to run it for our project submissions, so I'll be showing you how to do that. XNA is a framework that works on multiple platforms, PC, Zune, Windows Phone, or 360. So you'll be able to deploy to Windows phones if you want to. So Visual Studio creates a project to keep all these items together. It's the content manager, as I said, the solution explorer, like in the case of the shooter I'm about to show you. This keeps all the content for that shooter together, all the sound. These are various sound files. Explosion, for example. I'm giving you kind of a preview of things that you'll see in this game pretty soon. BG layer, that's the background for the game that we're about to see. And menu, that's the menu for the game that we're about to see. So all of that is in the content manager inside of Visual Studio. Of course, you can have multiple solutions, and that's very powerful as well to be able to switch back and forth from multiple solutions. In this case, we see that already that there are multiple solutions. I've got Hello World here. If I want to switch, I can just go ahead and go to shooter.sln, and I can use Visual Studio to manage those different projects. So, in summary, we've kind of talked about how you tell a computer what to do, what C# is. It's a programming language that allows you to provide instructions to a computer. How do you use XNA to write computer games, and what Visual Studio's role is in all of this. Also, I'd let you know about the Creators Club. That's something you can check out. Microsoft Xbox Creators Club. And finally, just these are questions that might appear on a quiz coming soon to you, or questions similar to this. So true or false on all these. So just kind of quiz yourself as we go along. Computers write their own programs. No, I don't think so. Humans write their own write the programs for the computers. Computers are just kind of dumb machines that really don't know anything, and we kind of try to imbue our intelligence into the machines. Outside of some interesting artificial intelligence initiatives, this is always the case. XNA is a programming language. False. XNA is a game studio or a game suite that allows you to create games, like a game engine. XNA Game Studio is what it is called, and that basically means that it is there for you as a framework to create games. Visual Studio is used to write C# programs. That is true. We will be using Visual Studio to write our programs. You have to have a huge brain to write games. That is false. There's a lot of games written by a lot of different types of people. And some people obviously are very bright, very good at math. You've got a lot of those in the games industry, but you also have an equal number of people probably that are just very creative. They know enough to get by on their C# or their Java or their C++, but maybe they weren't necessarily the best in school or something like that. They just have a good sense for gameplay. A lot of those people end up becoming game designers eventually because they're recognized for their creative skills. But they might also start out as programmers. That is a traditional role that you will step into eventually as a game designer, and you might start out as a programmer and then become a designer later. You do not need to be in the Creators Club, by the way, to write XNA games. This is false. C# is just for writing games. That is also false. C# can be used for a number of things. I mentioned the database implications there. Really, you could even use it for writing apps. And is it true that XNA stands for Xbox is nicer than all other consoles? I don't really think so, but I'll leave you that to ponder. And that concludes Unit 5. There will be an online quiz posted sometime before the end of the week, so please take that. There will also be a quick video explaining the assignment for week 1, so please take a look at that, as well as corresponding documentation to explain that assignment. Oh, I almost forgot. I promised to show you a glimpse of where we're going to go from here. This is the shooter project. I already had this up once before. And basically this is the entire project. I'm just going to go start debugging. Very soon we're going to be able to create something like this. We need to understand the basics of C# first, but probably by week 3 or 4 we should be able to get into this stuff. So we're getting there. This is just all these files are used to make up that very simple shooter, and we are still going to be adding explosions beyond what you even just saw, as well as more advanced enemies, sound, and that kind of thing. So I always like to give kind of a preview to where we're going, and with that I am done. See you next time.